Hello, Virgo. This is a forecast for Virgo rising and Virgo moon sign for September 2021. So Virgo, your ruling planet is in its best possible position. It's in exaltation in your sign. So it does very well in its own sign, and it's seen as exalted in its sign. So it's in its highest dignity, its strongest position. Now, all that sounds very good and everything, and it is great. And for you personally, and if it's your rising sign physically even, you might be feeling more energy at this time. And it's certainly a good time for you to be very focused on details and efficiency in your life, getting some things in order, organizing your life and all of that. It's all great for that. It's great for planning ahead also. Just to be mindful that there is a big review coming up in October because Mercury is going to retrograde in October through your sign. And so it's a major personal review that you're going through next month. So why do I mention that now in September? Because September is setting that up in many ways. So the things that you're doing in September set up this major review in October. So just be mindful of that, I would say, from the outset. And at the same time, it's a great time to move ahead and plan ahead and to try doing new things and planning new things and all of that. Now, the downer is in a way Venus, which can bring the mood down somewhat because Venus and Virgo can be a bit too picky. Because if you're being so efficient in your life and organizing things and looking at how you can improve things, which is a big part of Virgo, a big part of who you are, when you apply that to relationships, that's not such a great idea, because when you look at people, human beings who are flawed and imperfect, and everything is perfect as it is, of course, in another way, but people and relationships are messy. It's not perfect. They're not machines. So when Venus is in Virgo, we can sometimes treat people like we're trying to calibrate a machine. And of course, they're not going to behave in that way, right? Machines are machines. So in a way, there's a need to calibrate your life and all of that, that's for sure. But what can bring the mood down is if you start finding fault in your partner. That's one major thing. If you find fault in any other, actually, in your any family members, any relationship, and any relationship you're having, any kind of thoughts or beliefs that you have, your relationship with your father as well is in a major impact here, Venus. Any travel plans, getting too bogged down in details and getting overly focused on analyzing the situation where you're looking for fault. Because if you're only focused on fault finding, all you're going to find is a fault. So that's maybe the bit of the downer of Venus here. But the good news is that Venus is only going to stay here for the first few days now. It's been there for already a few weeks. So it's only a few more days. And by the 5th, it will move on into Libra, into a much better position. So this, I'll show you how this shifts. Everything shifts around the new moon on the 6th, 7th. So here is the 6th. And Venus has moved out of your sign into Libra, out of its weakest place, into a very strong place, leaving your ruling planet Mercury behind in your sign at 15 degrees of your sign at its exact degree of exaltation. So Mercury, your ruler, is very powerful right now on the 6th and on this new moon. The new moon occurs with moon and sun coming together in Leo at 20 degrees, and Mars has just moved into your sign. So there's a whole shift that's going on the 6th into the 7th now on this new moon. So it's a great time to maybe slow down and pay attention and see that shift and feel it and set some intentions and plant some seeds. And yes, organize your life and still plan ahead, do all those things, but also take some time to actually think about, the things beyond your control and beyond your even conscious thinking. Just settle the mind, I would say, somewhat in something you cannot see, in more meditative states and more contemplative states for this new moon on the 6th, 7th, because the energy is going to ramp up in a big way in the coming days. So it'd be good to kind of just give yourself that pause on this new moon. And the new moon itself, like I said, is in Leo. So it's your 12th house. So it's the hidden place in your chart, the subconscious, the sleep states, the dream states. And so there might be some, a good time perhaps to set some intentions, to plant some seeds in your subconscious in a very positive way. And that would be a time to then watch that grow subsequently. So how do you plant seeds in your subconscious? Well, I mean, it's just being mindful of the things that are around you and mindful of the deeper processes at work, and you know, the influences all around you, your environment and everything is important for the 12th house. Just as when you go to sleep at night, your environment for sleep is so important that you have the setup correct. I think this new moon and the upcoming lunar month is an important time to really have your environment, you know, and a restful environment to begin this new, what could be a frenetic, quite, you know, stimulating month ahead. And it most likely will be. So the reason for that, of course, is not just Mercury, but it's Mars Mercury. You know, if it were just Mercury in your sign, that's one thing that's very stimulating already, which is great. And you feel great energy. But then you put Mars behind it and it's like adding fuel to the fire. It's just a lot of energy. And if you're not actually focusing on that energy in a positive way, it could become quite disruptive. Because for you, Virgo, Mars is not the easiest planet. You're having to deal with other people and unexpected events with Mars. You're having to deal with engaging with others who have their own set of beliefs and their own things that they find important that contrast to you. And this can show these kind of unexpected outcomes. So in terms of your relationships or all of that, that would be one obvious expression, just being open and aware and more mindful. And when you do that, then you can find more productive means to express Mars and Mercury, which could be, you know, just being very, like I said, analytical and proactive and action orientated, planning ahead, organizing your life, and doing all those things that you need to do right now. And September being that kind of time of year anyway, where most people just get on to a schedule and start getting the routine in order and getting their diaries out and doing all of that. So this is most definitely a time for you to do that, Virgo. It's a very powerful time for that for you. And it's a very powerful time in improving your life, making your life better in every which way. If you're not doing something proactive with Mars creeping up behind Mercury now in the coming weeks, and Mars actually combust as well in this time, because the sun is about to move into your sign by mid-September, you'll just feel that as an angsty energy that feels like it doesn't have an outlet. So if you're not even like physically expressing it, which is another good idea here, is to physically get active and get out there and start maybe an exercise routine at this time. Again, that's another common thing people do in September after the summer holidays, and you know, start scheduling their life and make sure that you schedule in some exercise, you know, at least a little bit, you know, forming habits that are healthier for you. All of that is important in September. So think about all of these things on the new moon, I would say, on the 6th into the 7th. And let me bring it forward. Let's keep moving forward. The moon moves into your sign and joins Mars and Mercury on the 8th, 9th into the 10th. And then the moon joins Venus. Now, Venus is settled into Libra, which is in a much stronger position in your second sign. So this is good in terms of wealth, family, resources, enjoyments, just enjoying your family and your surroundings and the things that you have, you know, being grateful for the things that you have in your life as well. It's an important thing, whether it's family or resources, whatever it is. And looking at your values, what you value and what is meaningful to you. The things that you value also have to be meaningful for Virgo, because the second lord is also the 9th lord. So the moon joining Venus here then on the 10th, 11th, 12th is a time to really think about these things that you value. Again, beyond physical things, beyond the stuff that you have, even still enjoying the stuff that you have. So the moon then joins Ketu in Scorpio, and Mars, of course, now is in your sign. So it's being very mindful of this Mars energy that's really ramping up in you. And with Ketu in Scorpio, which is the other ruler of Scorpio, and joined by the moon, it's highlighting this theme here of the third sign. And the third sign is very much about letting go of any difficulties that you have in communication, overcoming blocks in being able to communicate effectively, which means also listening carefully. Third sign is how we listen. And sometimes Ketu here can show a lack and an inability to truly listen. But the third sign is also about your own opinions. It's about listening to your own guidance, your own need to work it all out. Third sign is also about engagement in terms of everyday traveling about in your locality, in just dealing with neighbors and people around you in your immediate vicinity, about siblings as well, and any kind of communication back and forth and interaction, and sex also, third sign. It's all about, looking at these things more carefully. And again, looking at what's blocking that kind of engagement right now. And of course, this highlights the contrasted situation and the opposite extreme, which is Rahu in the ninth sign, which is this need to really develop this, ninth house philosophy, a different kind of philosophy, a different kind of belief system, a change in how you think, even like maybe some really deeply held beliefs that are going through transformations right now, and how that impacts, they're going back to your third sign, how that impacts what it is you're communicating in the first place. So the third and ninth is very much about communication, of course, but it's also the lower mind and the higher mind. The lower mind is the third sign, and it's more like that egoic engagement with others, where you feel like you are you and they are them, and everybody has their opinion. And maybe it's about kind of relinquishing some of that stress and aggro at this time with Mars in your sign, and looking to the higher mind, the ninth sign, and develop this kind of higher philosophical stance and all of that with Rahu. And that is backed up by the strength of Venus in Libra in your second sign. So there's some good transits right now. And again, if you channel them in a very positive way, you can overcome the Mars angst energy in a healthier way. So then the moon moves into Sagittarius on the 14th. And it's at this point that Jupiter will move back into Capricorn. So Jupiter has been moving through your sixth sign with Neptune here. And this has created a vague sort of notion and sense of, what you need to be doing every day. And now it moves back into your fifth sign. I mean, on the one hand, it's a bit of a dip in terms of the mood and morale. But in another way, it's an opportunity to get it right now. And the fifth sign is all about your relationship with your lover, your partner, your children, your creative endeavors, your expression, your future planning and speculation, your inspiration. So it's obviously a good time, therefore, then to really look back and reassess and reconnect with those relationships, those parts of yourself, that expressive part of yourself, and to look at what's really important to you. And then when you're clear about that, and you eventually get clear about it through some maybe lack of clarity for a while, then once you're clear about it, you can move on and plan and work for those things that you want to achieve, which is what the sixth house is about. So you might have noticed in the last few months, because Jupiter has been moving through your sixth, that it's been a bit of a chore maybe at times. Maybe the home and relationship environment, you've been looking at problems, you've been dealing with some problems. And now it's a time to go back to find out what inspires you in the first place. Why are you doing any of it? Why would you do anything? And so if you don't have an inspiration to do anything, you're not going to continue doing that. And so this is a time to really reconnect with your heart and your heart's desire. So that is the moon in Sagittarius, and it will be even more emphasized when the moon joins these planets in 16th, 17th, 18th. Now, at this time also, the sun has moved into your sign. So now this is a very powerful time of year for you, Virgo, because it's a time to recharge your batteries for the next few weeks, from the middle of September to the middle of October. Sun in Virgo, and also combust Mars, there's a lot of energy here. You've got lots of energy to work with. So if you're not doing something with it, it's going to start really working on you in another way that you don't want it to. And it could really be like this kind of like angsty, irritable, angry even energy. So think about anger as an energy. I think, is it like the Sex Pistols song, anger is an energy. And so use it, I would say. Now that sun's come in, it's a more balanced heat. So it's like an inspired energy. Whereas Mars is a bit of a tetchy energy sometimes when you're not getting what you want as quick as you want it. Or someone else is like impressing upon you that they want something from you, whatever it is. It's all about wants. The sun is more connected to some higher goal and inspiration. And because it's your 12th lord as well, especially, it's about connecting to something beyond all of the details and the trappings of the world and all of that, the everyday stuff, So sun in your sign for the next few weeks is great to really recharge, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, And this is the case every year, of course, from middle of September to middle of October. But this year it's even more powerful because of Mercury here and retrograding here, Mars here, combust here. Lots of power, lots of energy going on here. So let me move it forward a few more days, and the moon joins Neptune in your sixth sign on the 18th or into the 19th, 20th. And so this is when, you know, when you look at Neptune and its many years transit in Aquarius, your sixth sign, noticing how vague the notions that you have about your daily routine are. And maybe that it's time to be more clear about these, and perhaps not just quite yet. Maybe it's time to still dream the dream, right? To focus on what is the perfect setup, what is the perfect daily routine, you know, what is the ideal. That's what Neptune is all about. When Saturn moves in here next summer, and then the following year for the next few years especially, this will be a time to get more real and work on removing things that aren't working. Because Neptune is just initially about like getting this kind of idea or ideal in your mind's eye about what would be the perfect daily routine, the perfect working day, you know, the perfect exercise regime, the perfect whatever. It's like Neptune is this kind of idealized version of anything. So the moon joining here on the 18th, 19th, 20th kind of really highlights that again, and focusing on this, I think, will be a major part of your life as well for the next few years, because Jupiter will return here at the end of the year, but next year, like I said, Saturn will move in here. So all of those ideals and ideas have to be brought down to earth in a workable, you know, fashion. You have to have a step-by-step guide, which is what's coming up next. So that's a longer term picture, but anyway, let's move it forward, and then we'll talk about this full moon on the 20th. So the full moon is in Pisces. It's obviously opposite the Sun, Mars, Mercury, all of these powerful planets here in Virgo in your rising sign, and or your moon sign, whichever it is. And then the moon is opposite now of these. So it's about getting balance between all of these detail orientated things in Virgo, the planning, the scheduling, all of that. And the Pisces dynamic of just learning to let go a little more, just go with the flow a bit more. And this full moon, and all full moons anyway, are about like, I guess, new moon or full moon are about taking a pause, whether it's a pause inwardly with the new moon, or it's an outward expression of the full moon and a kind of like release of the energy with the full moon. So there's definitely a need here to pause even more so, not just because of it being a full moon, but because opposite Neptune is slowing down, or Mercury is slowing down. Your ruler is slowing down. It's moving very slowly now, and in the following week it's going to station retrograde. So it's definitely a time to this full moon to readjust your stance, because up until now it's been maybe a bit frenetic, even stimulating, full on, lots of energy to do stuff, plan stuff, organize. And now it's about, okay, I've done all I can now on this full moon on the 20th of September. Let me just take a pause and see how this floats for a while. Let's see where this goes. Let's see what sticks. And let's see also what I need to redo and rework, which is what October is about more so. So moving it forward then on the 23rd, 24th into the 25th, you have moon move into your 8th sign, which is also Mars's sign, where Uranus is now retrograde. So this is a time to really pay attention to Mars's energy. Not only because Mars is in your sign, it's also combust in your sign, because moon in Aries now is highlighting Uranus in your 8th sign. And 8th house is all about unexpected changes, and especially around, you know, your family or your partner's family, sorry, and your in-laws basically, and your partner's values, and any kind of unexpected events in your life in general, any kind of obstacles you might have to overcome, any kind of sense of vulnerability, insecurity, unknown things that are happening to you. This all must be addressed in terms of making internal changes now with Uranus retrograde. So there's been a lot of unexpected surprises in your life, of course, with Uranus in your 8th, but now you have to make those adjustments because of that and get on the same page, basically. So the moon is reminding you that from the 23rd to the 25th of September, while Mars continues to transit through your sign and asks you to make those very positive changes that you need to for yourself. The moon then joins North Node on the 26th, 27th into the 28th, Now, the moon is exalted and Venus is very strong in Libra. So this is a very powerful moon in your ninth sign, in again, this higher mind, looking for some higher inspiration. And at the same time, we just need to be mindful of that Rahu's tendencies to block things, to overly focus, maybe obsess even on things and lose perspective on things. So it might be a good time to kind of keep this in perspective, keep whatever beliefs you're holding in perspective, connect with those for sure, and communicate clearly what it is that you believe. That's second sign. But because Mercury, your ruler, has now stationed on the 27th, as the moon joins Taurus and Rahu, it's a time to be really clear about what you're communicating at this stage, and to maybe like take some time out from saying too much, because there's a lot of things that you need to process. And Mercury retrogrades are generally a better time to listen more than speak, because there's just a lot in your mind to process. The mind tends to speed up when Mercury stations. And so there's a lot to deal with. And then you're also having to review some things while you're moving ahead in your life as you normally would. So this will be a time to really slow down and pay attention to the things that are important to you. The moon then moves and finishes in Cancer by the end of the month, and Mercury is about to move back into your sign. So that will be a time to really focus on, slowing down, reevaluating things, what's important to you, your family dynamic, and what's valuable to you, and how that impacts you. How did that sustain you? How does it sustain you literally physically? If I give an example of this being your rising sign, Virgo, for example, then the second sign would be the food that sustains you. So reevaluating your diet, for example. But it might be something else. If it's your moon sign, it might be just reevaluating the things that you hold dear and that are important to you, and how that impacts you and feeds your soul. And the things that you're feeding your mind, what are you feeding your mind, and how does that impact you, your mental health, So these are lots of considerations to take on board here by the end of September. A lot of things to reorientate around as well, and especially into October, which is a major review for you. And all the while though, Virgo, this is a great boost for you with Mars, Sun, your ruler, Mercury, very strong in your sign in September. It's a great time to really take full advantage of, I would say. And yeah, I hope you make the most. I hope you enjoyed that. And as always, I wish you the very best for the month ahead. And until next time.